Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, Sporting Kansas City has officially ended their losing streak, and not in the manner anyone would have expected, both in how the game unfolded, nor the final scoreline. The first orange ball game in Children's Mercy Park history led to a wild comeback in the second half, with Sporting scoring 3 goals in a 12-minute span before eventually coming away with a 3-3 draw against Minnesota United. Now it is a draw, which does mean that the team still has not won a game since the middle of September last year, but we're going to try to stay positive for as long as we can this week, given the limited opportunity to have such positive vibes so far this season. Something that appeared to spark the comeback was a welcome sight: substitutions. Peter Vermes was candidly fairly proactive in making changes in this game, both at halftime and early in the second half, in an attempt to change the game, and it worked. Daniel Salloi, Leibold, Memo Rodriguez all made significant impacts to how the left side of Sporting's offense functioned in the last half hour of the game, and noticeably helped get the game back on level terms. Tactical Corner this week will take a further look at coaching ideologies, how they can differ while still creating success, and what adaptations coaches like Peter Vermes, who firmly believe in structure, have to make in order to be able to maintain success in the current game. We've spent a lot of time on the podcast the last several months talking about how an overemphasis on control and structure could potentially be a bugaboo for the long-term prospects of this club. And we'll expound on that conversation further, as well as suggest some things we are seeing positional play coaches implement in their systems, as well as perhaps some subtle shifts Vermes appears to have employed as well. Finally, we'll take a quick look at how the U.S. men's national team is doing versus Panama. The game is being played as we're recording this. We'll also check in on the Kansas City Current as they started off their 2025 season with a bang, and do a quick preview of this weekend's upcoming matchup versus LAFC. Cody, to say the first half of the game Saturday night was frustrating would be putting it pretty mildly. For those in the stands, the weather was pretty miserable, and the play on the field did not do much to improve the conditions for the fans. Minnesota did basically what they wanted to and what we predicted they would do when we recorded last week. They stayed very organized in their low block, allowed very little space to play through, focused on long service, both with balls over the top and with literally any restart inside of Sporting Kansas City's defensive half, and were ruthless with any attacking transition moment of significance. I said I was going to try to keep it positive this week, but we really can't get to the positive of this game before being honest about what was a pretty dour first hour of the game. So what did you take away from that period, and additionally, the changes we saw Peter Vermes make to try to address it?
I mean, I think that the main stats are really what jumps out, and Minnesota had like 29-30% of the ball possession. Sporting Kansas City had 71% possession, but only .06 expected goals, and so Sporting Kansas City was not doing anything to take the game to Minnesota and be proactive in attacking, and it was just like possess, give up a counter, and a high leverage chance at the other end for Minnesota is what it felt like. And I think I texted you a diatribe at halftime. It's just like there's nothing, like there's no progress at all. There's nothing new. It's all the same stuff. It's ridiculous and pathetic, and I didn't probably use those words, but it wasn't far off, right? I mean, I was pretty upset, and I actually was not in the park. We decided not to go because we dressed for cold weather, but not wet cold weather, and so I don't know where the precipitation came from, because it was not forecast at all, but I don't know. I mean, I think that it was I don't regret that decision. I'll just say that, even the comeback being considered, but yeah, the first half was just, I mean, I don't know, it was just grim, man. I was really upset going into the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it was a concern that we had before the game was played. Is just Minnesota is an extremely organized team. They're very organized defensively. They don't care about possessing the ball. They will let you possess it in their defensive half or even defensive third and just stay very organized. And that is just not something Sporting Kansas City for the last several years has been very good at breaking down. And they not only breaking it down, but or like understanding that game state and using other methodologies to attempt to create space that just and we'll talk about those when we get to tactical corner because I do think it's important. I I don't I don't know that it was as much the umbrella of despair like we're used to, but it was still fairly useless possession. There
Right.
was no there was no incisive passing. There were no like there were no patterns of any kind that appeared to be getting the team close to having touches inside Minnesota's 18. And it was pretty dour. And then exactly what we expected to happen happened. They would compress their lines a little too high, have a bad turnover because you have people like Zoran Basong playing a significant role for this team right now. You have a turnover, and the back line is so high that they can't effectively retreat. And making some bad decisions about trying to get into tackles and a variety. There's a variety of choices about how they went about play in this first half that just it seemed to play directly into Minnesota's game plan. And that was the
Totally.
part that I think was I was most frustrated by is they just really played directly into Minnesota's hands. And that part I was really kind of annoyed by. Obviously, not getting any shots, that's a big deal. Two shots, 71% possession, and you get two shots, and they're both long range.
Yeah.
That's just pathetic. It's just not good enough, right? Now, there were attempts to do things movement wise that did not get played. And I think that's a separate issue that we really need to discuss. And I think it has to do with why some of the substitutions were made the way they were. Because the team, Daniel Sperry actually highlighted this in his post-game article. I assume someone on the staff highlighted the fact that this was a pattern that they were trying to utilize. It's the pattern that Daniel Salloi scores on. There were many sequences upon which, on the left side of that offense, you could see a back shoulder run starting and no pass being hit. And I don't know if we're blaming Logan and Denbe for that. I don't know if we're blaming Radia is not generally that guy either to hit that pass. So you see Memo Rodriguez come on at halftime, switch over to that side. That didn't really get it started. So then you see Leibold and Salloi, and now you have Salloi, Leibold, and Memo over on that side. And all of a sudden, first of all, you're seeing a lot more width, which is part of the issue, right? Tommy plays so narrowly because he's a midfielder playing winger. You see Salloi using a lot more width and using the space a little bit more effectively. But also within a couple minutes, you see that back shoulder run, you see Leibold hit the pass over the top, and you see a goal. Now, granted, all of it was executed extremely well, and normally you're going to need more than one of those chances to score. Thankfully, they got it on the one opportunity that they got in that circumstance. But I think it was eye-opening to me that there's still a lot that this team is sort of dysfunctional at.
Yeah, I think that even making those runs and not hitting the runs, that's something that goes back to last year and even probably the season before. And the person who was not hitting those passes was the best passer on the team in some respects, and that was Andreu Fontas. And I have watched him just multiple times, just spot. Make eye contact with wingers ready to make the run, or midfielders ready to make the run out of midfield, and then back off of it. And even though he was he's a pretty accurate long ball specialist, I don't really I don't really consider him to be sort of a playing over the top kind of player. I mean, he was mostly playing long balls into feet, I think, and that's a
There were
different thing.
opportunities to play these on the ground too that
Sure,
Ndenbe didn't hit.
sure, that is not, frankly, Ndenbe's strong suit, and it I don't know if it ever will be, but one of the problems with trying to hit Eric Tommy in that position is if he's playing tighter in, then the geometry of that pass, unless it's coming from the right hand side, is since he's playing so narrow, it makes it a ball that can be swept up more easily by goalkeepers, and so
Well, especially if you're asking a left-footed player who's wide of him to hit that ball, that's actually a pretty hard pass to hit. You've almost got to sort of curl it as a sort of in-swinger.
Yeah.
Whereas Shallowy's making that run from a lot wider. Leibold is narrower, and he can play him into the diagonal run there. So I see what you're saying. Like, some of it is just where the players are positioned when the supposed sequence is supposed to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is that's the kind of direct attacking play that you and I have been clamoring for, and it's the kind of direct attacking play that we really thought that young dynamic attackers like Stephen Afrifa were going to be able to really make a meal out of, and I think it is really to Daniel Salloi's credit that he comes on and makes the run first, yes, but also then makes the play on top of it, and it was really sorely needed by the team. I mean, without that goal, I mean, that just kind of gets the party started, and players need to make plays, right? Especially when they're playing at home, especially given all the context around the start to this season, the end to last season. There has been a lot of players trying, I think, maybe to do too much or to do take on things that maybe they're not suited for. But at the end of the day, especially attacking players, they just need to make plays, and that means getting their team goals, and Salloi did that.
Or just try things.
Yeah.
I mean, that was that up until that point, there was no one really trying to influence the game. Mm-hmm. There was just a whole lot of moving the ball in and out and hoping something opens up.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that against Minnesota. You have to create space against them. You have to pull them out of their shape and create space to attack. And Sporting was just not very effective at that at all for the first hour of this game. I have a lot of thoughts as to why. I think before we get into what they could have been doing and what a positional play team should be doing in order to create the spaces that they need to be able to attack, let's talk a little bit about the Hassani Dotson goal. It's an absolute golazo. I don't know nobody's saving that. It's really poor second phase defending as far as closing down the space. This is a problem. I mean, drink if you've heard me say this before. Second phase of set pieces, they just tend to get really disconnected and don't close down the ball. I don't know why. I don't know what continues to cause this problem. I don't know if it's their zonal marking gets all fucked up and then they don't know what to do, but it's a significant issue that needs to be addressed. It has to be addressed because this happens way too much. But the goal itself, it's what the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great hit, and
absolutely, it should be goal of the week. It's unreal how clean he hits it, and he puts it in a place. There's no way Pulscamp's getting to it.
Yep.
The second goal was a goal that should have been scored 10 minutes earlier. Mm-hmm. Honestly, on a very similar play, and it highlighted something. And I think I said this to you when I was rewatching, and I texted you about it. The thing that I was upset at some level that Pulscamp doesn't come out for the cross a little bit sooner. The run was fairly clear, what Longwane was doing and where the run was coming from Oluwaseyi. You could see them about 3 steps ahead, mm-hmm. what was happening on that play. And I was frustrated by that, but I'm not. I think Mike Kuhn put a pretty good sort of distillation of events on that play in the Discord. So this is your weekly reminder to jump in the Discord, participate in the conversation. Links in the show notes. But Mike, obviously, I trust his assessment of goalkeeper play a lot more than my own. And he said, he's like, look, it's, and I agreed with him. And that's why I asked him to sort of corroborate my point of view, which is on rewatch, Pulskamp's got to at least keep the guy honest on his near post before, otherwise Longwane is just going to shoot at the goal. So he does have to at least keep him honest before moving. He's probably a half step late, but I don't know how much difference it makes as far as him getting in front of that ball. What really upset me, and I texted you this, the 3 consecutive late tackles that whiffed.
Yeah.
And for a couple reasons. One of them is the late recognition that caused them to be late into those tackles and not be able to get anything out of them. Mm-hmm. Not any of the 3. All of them were late, so none of them pulled anything off. The fact that against a team who will absolutely murder you on a counterattack, your goal is to heavily counterpress them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, but you're like, you've got like a lit M80 in your hand that you're hoping to put out before it blows up when you do shit like that, right? Like, you better get that shit dead right if you're going to play that game.
Well, and if you don't, you have to be ready and positionally in a place where you can tactically foul, and that
was the third part, right?
Yep.
Roddy is in a guy's back. If you're going to go into that guy's back, or is it Volater? It's Volater.
It's Volater.
Volater goes into the guy's back and doesn't take him out.
Oh, he even slide tackles him, right? He's down on the ground.
And still doesn't take him out.
Yeah. You got to take him out.
Like, you either get the ball or you take the yellow card. One or the other.
You can do both, too.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't
care.
Okay. But the play has to stop there.
Yeah.
If you're going to make that tackle, the play has to stop.
Has to.
And that's the thing. It's like, or just stop counterpressing that heavily when Minnesota gets in transition and just retreat.
Yeah.
Like, retreat. Get into your spacing. They've only got 2 fucking attackers in there because they've been bunkered so hard that they can't get 9 guys downhill that fast.
Yep.
So pull your 4 guys back and you've got a 4-on-2. You're defending space. Like, I don't, like, all of it was wrong.
Yeah.
That's what was so frustrating to me about it. It wasn't just that Pulskamp was a little bit late. It was just that the whole process by which they meant to stop that play totally failed.
Yep. And no one was there to pick up the pieces.
Well, 3 guys whiffed.
Right.
Like, when 3 guys whiff, you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was an extremely frustrating sequence to watch. And it left me wondering, like, was the game plan the right one? Did these guys know when to back off? Like, for a coach who's as defensively conservative as Vermes is, I struggle to believe that he was like, yeah, let's just all out counter press and hope we catch them every time.
I think that he wants to build a team that is a counter-pressing team, and I think that is, one of the tenets of his game model, and I think that he's gonna attempt to implement that, regardless of what players he has on the field, and I don't think that that's the right choice necessarily. I mean, he's not a coach. He's never been a coach that tailors his tactical setup really to fit the players that he has available to him. He's never been that guy. He's not going to become that guy right now.
He does adjust it. He does adjust it for opponents, though.
Yeah, he makes macro adjustments. We've talked about that, right? But within the game, he doesn't make those adjustments, and he expects.
I guess my point though is that you can give instructions against Minnesota to be a little less aggressive with your high line and to retreat.
And I
when
think
you see certain things.
Sure. I think he would say that especially based on those 3 missed tackles, that his responsibility as coach is to put the players in a position to be successful, and they were in the right place, and they should have been able to take care of
One of those 3 people should
right,
have gotten
So
to stop the play.
So it's easy as a coach to look at that and say, I did my job. The players are the ones who didn't do their job.
Yeah, but when the same thing happens over and over and over again,
yeah, I totally agree with you, man.
like you have to adjust, like you have to recognize the players that you have and make adjustments for them. And I understand, I understand that's the point you're making. It's like he doesn't adjust for players, or it appears that he's not adjusting for players. He's made some positional arrangement adjustments to try to unlock Tommy, and that's been a waste of time, it appears. It
really does appear that way. Yeah. But
especially given how bright Salloi was immediately when he came on. And some of that is because, like, I will give Vermes credit on the coaching side of this. He was obviously sending Salloi a message, right? We talked about this last week. You don't bring him on in the 88th minute unless you're trying to say something, right? And it sounds like, based on the post-game comments from both of them, that Salloi's been a little frustrated by the situation and by how Tommy has been prioritized. Salloi's had to play right wing. He's had to go to the bench. And Vermes is like, okay, well, sometimes I got to make decisions and I'm the coach and it's your job to figure it out. And he's not wrong about that. It's Salloi's job as a player to prove that he should be on the field. And to his benefit, when he was given a legitimate chance to do so, he proved that he should be on the field. Whether that changes the lineup on Saturday, we'll see.
See, the thing is, Salloi is right also, because you took away, the Ndenbe to Salloi rapport. You've scrapped that in favor of putting a square peg in a round hole.
Are we sure that so I know you like the Salloi and Ndenbe thing. Are we sure that that is a really important thing for them to create chances on that side? I don't know how important Ndenbe is to their offensive progression.
I think he seems to be very, or at least he was very important.
He doesn't look like it right now.
No, and I think that we should be a little cautious about being too harsh on him, because he is still coming back from a major knee injury, and it's an injury that oftentimes players, like, even though they're back on the field, they're not 100% for some time, and so I think it's worth being a little bit cautious in terms of that. But you're right. I mean, he has not looked like the Logan Ndenbe that we've seen previous to his injury. That's for sure.
I can understand as far as him making sort of up and down the field runs and like his lateral movement and things like that being limited coming back from a knee injury. I'm talking about him doing anything substantive with the ball at his feet.
Yeah. I don't think that was ever like his strong suit.
Well, okay, but that's my point. Like, I don't know how all of a sudden him and Salloi playing 90 minutes together regularly is going to make that a thing. I think that worked when Polito was coming over there and they had the 4-man overload. I don't see them doing that very much. Now, granted, it's because Tommy's over there and he and Manu tend to step on each other's feet, so maybe that's part of the reason why that's not happening.
Look,
but
you can't make this argument without acknowledging that Tommy does not interplay well with anybody. Like,
he's
he
a
just
fucking
doesn't.
black hole, dude. He's
he
a black
doesn't.
hole.
So that's the major caveat here.
He is a player that I actually really respect a lot and I like a lot, and I don't think he's a bad soccer player. I just think he is an absolutely terrible fit for this team.
Yeah.
Outside of his leadership and mentality and all the traits related to that fit, the pillars of the team, intelligence and leadership and all the other stuff. When we get into a positional play system that requires sort of very intricate ball movement to function effectively,
right? He's
a terrible fit for that.
Yeah. And we knew this. This is why but before we realized that his option had been triggered automatically, we really considered that he would probably be a player who didn't return. And it's not because, like you said, it's not because he's a bad player. It's just because he doesn't really have a place in this particular system.
I mean, there's a number of players like that. I mean, that's why we were totally on board with Voltaire not coming back, because his playing style doesn't really fit. As much as you want to say about Radoja, and there are limitations in Radoja's game, and I don't think he's $1.5 million a year player in MLS. I do think that at least some of his traits are working with this system, and I can see them functioning, and I can actually see Vermes sort of unlocking him a little bit. I know you're not the biggest Radoja fan, but I thought he was actually pretty good in this game.
Yeah, it's the best game he's played in some time.
Right, both defensively, which is really important, but also him being shaded over to the left and hitting that long side switch. He was hitting it to Jake a lot. Right, and he hits that sort of curled right footer around the defense to get the wide switch in space. It's sort of a hallmark of things that he's good at, but also extremely press resistant, extremely and good in tight spaces, good at releasing a pass in tight spaces. So like he's just not Elie, right? He is not gonna carpet a 20-yarder through 3 lines. Like it's just not his game, right? I remember, I think it was sometime last year, we saw him hit one to Polito, and Polito scored immediately on it. We're like, oh, if he's got this in his bag, then we're gonna, and we never saw it again, right? Like that was the only time we've ever seen him hit that pass. So let's not expect that to be happening. But I thought that a couple things. One, we discussed, it was the Memo, Leibold, Salloi left side that immediately made that side a lot more productive in progressing the ball effectively. But it also moved Radoja to the right, where Basong was, and it allowed Jake to get up and inverted into midfield. And because Radoja was providing defensive cover on that side, Jake could get up and inverted into that half space, and he was a lot more effective in helping provide service. And he was kind of in that space that Basong was sort of in, and Radoja was deeper, and it really also created some. They had balance in their front line for the first time I've seen like all year. They had balance in their front line where Minnesota could not overload either side. Joe Lowry like put up a thing like in the first half. It was right, or maybe it was right at the beginning of the second half. I can't remember, but he put up a thing kind of highlighting one of the issues they were having. I think it must have been in the first half because Radoja was still playing on the left, and it showed how collapsed Sporting got on the right side of the field, to where like Ndenbe was almost in the right sided half space, and they were so locked up in like a ladder vertically. Like the furthest left player was Radoja, and he was inside the half of the field. And then once the ball moved out into that space, he was the only one there. And so now you have Nemanja Radoja trying to take a left-footed shot from the edge of the box, and like that's not what you're trying to accomplish at all. And is sort of antithetical to what positional play is, right? And so it's just I'm a little concerned, like to a point you were making earlier, that the team is losing the plot a little bit and trying to do too much, to your point, right? Everybody's trying to do too much. And when we saw in the second half, after some substitutes with some clear instructions, they finally got their spacing again, and they finally got their balance, and all of a sudden they look like a team that was at least dangerous. Did they deserve to score 3 goals? Maybe not, right? But I mean, football's a variance game, man. Like sometimes you're going to score a bunch, sometimes you're not. But they were much more effective in having dangerous possession than they were for the hour prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to also consider you can't forget that Minnesota was up 3-0, and they kind of took their foot off the gas, and they weren't weren't.
Well, it's also hard to be an organized defensive team for 90 minutes. Like it's hard to do that for 90 minutes straight.
But they weren't counterattacking with the intent and ferocity that they were previously, and they still had chances, right? I mean, they still had opportunities to do that if they had taken them. And they still had a higher xG in the second half compared to Sporting. It's just that the balls dropped the right way for Sporting, and the Sporting's third goal, the Joveljic goal, is the perfect example. I mean, yes, Manu is making, he's giving a good counter press, but the ball just kind of comes off his foot and lands right to Joveljic, and Joveljic, to his credit, he makes Minnesota pay for that mistake, and that's not something that this team has been good at doing. And so,
I mean, also the little setup touch he hits to sort of hold the defender and then kick it around him, like it was a DP striker's goal.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but it's not like a goal that's highly repeatable. It's one of those type of things.
You're unlikely to get opportunities to counter press turnovers back into the opponent's 18 against other opponents. Like it's not going to happen that often. Against Minnesota, it should be something you're looking to do. So like that's what I'm saying is like instructionally, there should be. It doesn't have to be either counter press or not. It has to be situationally. I understand that now's when the time to pull back. When you're trying to regain possession inside their 18, fuck yeah, you counter press the shit out of them. Try to create a turnover. Try to create chaos, especially against a team that's got 8 guys in their own box all the time. Like you have to do that in order to give yourself opportunities.
Now that is probably the best way to give yourself opportunities.
100%. And you see Manu. So like from that perspective, I understand what you're saying, that it's not repeatable to keep getting turnovers in someone's box, but against Minnesota, it should be a goal, right? Like it should be something you're trying to do in a possession transition moment that's near their goal. You should be counter pressing the fuck out of them to try to create another turnover so that you can go right back at them. Taking advantage of that. This
is the problem with just focusing on possession and keeping the ball. You don't. If you lose the ball in just a normal possession sequence, you don't really have that opportunity to counter press. Whereas if you cross the ball into the box or try and hit or try and chip the ball into the box, like those are opportunities that or try and play behind the defense on an overlap, like those are opportunities that if you lose the ball in those situations, they're high leverage opportunities for counter pressing, and that's what this team needs to focus on, right?
Right. Now you sort of took the words out of my mouth. So 100% agree. That was the next point that I was going to make, which is if all you're doing is kicking the ball around to yourself over and over again, you're not creating the circumstances upon which where you can counter press and take advantage of those scenarios. You should be like, this is the whole point of positional play and rest defense positioning, is that you have all your guys arranged in a way that when you try to make that entry pass and it gets cut out, all your guys are there to immediately attack that disorganization, that sort of that transition event. And there was no attempt to try to hit that pass, and therefore there were limited opportunities for that counter pressure to come into play and to be effective. But as we've noted several times, counter pressure is it is a big part of these types of systems, but it doesn't work if you're not creating situations where the opponent can be effectively counter pressed.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at. You don't have to be overly cautious here, right? Because especially
in fact, you shouldn't be.
No, you shouldn't be.
Once you're collapsed like that, you should not be cautious. You should be trying to hit the ball in and creating a possession transition event that you can attack. Like that's the whole fucking point.
You're either creating chaos in the box, when you're attacking, or you're okay with the opponent getting the ball and then you counter pressing them. Like that's the whole idea.
Yeah. but you're doing it intentionally, like I said, with a positional arrangement and a rest defensive posture that puts you in the best chance of success for regaining possession in a good situation, both for like you're able to aggressively attack the ball and get the ball back or have the highest percentage chance of getting the ball back, but also your teammates are all positioned in a way that all you have to do is get the ball back, release the pass, and you're on goal. Yep. Right? Like this is, I know we're oversimplifying it, but
no, we're not.
That is.
The goal is to get the ball in the box, especially if you have a DP striker like Joveljic. You have to get him touches in the box.
Look what happens when he gets a touch in the box.
You see, like that's the thing, right? I mean, it doesn't. You're not going to get these perfect, vintage Arsenal where you just kind of walk the ball into the net. Like those are not things that happen on a regular basis. You have to just sometimes create your own luck, and you can't do that when you're embracing the umbrella of despair and keeping possession just because the other team is allowing you to do so. You got to take some chances.
I wholeheartedly agree. We're stepping on tactical corner a little bit, so I'm just going to pause for just a second. Let's get back to Radia. I do think we're seeing a way that Radia can be used effectively. Whether or not he comes back, easy for me to say. Whether or not he comes back next year, not for this money. Not his effectiveness for the amount of salary budget that they're deploying on him is probably not appropriate. But
there's no probably to it. There are dozens of midfielders in MLS who make less than him who could do the same type of job.
Right, could create the same results. Right. Yeah. In the meantime, he's on the roster, and you should find a way to get a veteran player who understands how to play professional soccer on the field regularly. Like you're still never going to convince me that you're better off with Zoran Basong out there than him, right?
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make is that's
or even Memo Rodriguez. If I'm being completely out, like he is obviously next to Jake Davis the best midfielder they have, or central midfielder they have. So they need to find a way to get use out of him, and I do think that Vermes is figuring out positionally how to use him in a way that's effective, because he was very effective in this game. Now, that said, one of his biggest issues is defending space and transition, and that caught him in this game for sure. But I also saw many circumstances where he did anticipate play well and use his body to win the ball. Like he was like 17 of 18 duels or something like that. It was
he's a
wild.
Big guy. Yeah.
Use your frame, dude. Like, yep. I can't believe, like, at 31, we've got to tell the guy to use his body. But come on, dude. Like, this should be like you're bigger than all these dudes. Like,
he thought he thought SKC was bringing him in to be Pirlo, and that's not what is called for in the circumstance.
Absolutely not. And like I said, his press resistance is really good. He's a release valve when they're in their build out phase and the opponent is pressing. Like there are valuable things to his play that I think that they can utilize. And this was the first game that I can remember where the team, for the most part, used his strengths and didn't create too many circumstances where his weaknesses were exploited, right? And I think that that against a team that wants to counterattack a lot, I think that that's noteworthy. I would just say that.
So having him in a double pivot and having somebody who is not interested in possessing or even really attacking, I think is helpful to him. Like, Zoran Basong, having Zoran Basong in there to, basically be Radia's enforcer, like that kind of works. And the beautiful thing about it is it really frees up Manu Garcia to be more than just a left-sided 8. Like he is not playing that position in a way that we've seen a Peter Vermes player do before.
Maybe Felipe Gutierrez is probably the only one I can think of that was that all over the place, but it's different. It's a different.
He is very, very, like, noticeably. If you look at his heat map, he is like in the both like left and right half spaces, right? Like he is playing that role, depending on where the ball is, and it's clear that he has freedom to move all over, and it's not impacting his defensive work rate. That's for sure, because that guy presses everything.
Playing in a double pivot allows him to do that, though.
Absolutely,
right? Like
he's
not really a left-sided 8. He's more of a 10
right.
when
Absolutely.
they're doing that.
Yep.
But I also think that this system can still work in that way with Jake Davis next to Radia, because Jake is he's a very effective ground covering player.
Yep.
He, like I said, we've been trying to replace Raj for fucking 8 years, I feel like. Well, Raj was still on the team. We're like, how are we going to replace Raj? Jake is probably the closest allegory to Raj that I've seen on the team. And I think that if we can get Jake off of playing right back, which I think it appears everyone is in agreement that he needs to be in the midfield, right? Like even the coach is saying he needs to be in the midfield. We just can't because we don't have any other right backs. That when he's there, he's like Zoran Basong, but with a lot better soccer brain and technical skill and offensive instincts.
Absolutely.
Right? Like all of those things are ratcheted up by a significant factor.
Yep.
While also being a guy that will absolutely get in a tackle, will retreat, will be honest defensively, will cover the ground, will do all of the other bulldogish things that you need from that position. And so I'm just like, I know we've all sort of like convinced ourselves that this team's going to be so much better when Jake gets in the midfield, and I do think it will improve.
Yeah.
But it's also sort of telling that this team is so reliant on Jake Davis playing in the midfield for it to be semi-functional. Like,
yeah. we talked about this in the last pod, right? It really calls into question the wisdom of spending so much time having Jan Jurčić in preseason. Like what the fuck was the point of that? I mean, because we at this point, Jake's had to play almost every single minute at right back.
I don't think they expected Kyrie to get injured. Right, like
well,
I
sure.
think that was it. Right, like
right.
Jan Jurčić was a third fullback as far as they saw it. Right, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And then everybody, like the worst thing happens. They all get hurt. Well, Brody comes in, gets hurt. Kyrie's been hurt, and they just haven't been able to get Jake off that position. I mean, it's an unfortunate sequence of events, right? But
it's weird how those sequences happen so much with this.
They've been
team.
happening a lot. It's
weird.
one of those things. It's like that, when you're in freaking Linus with the damn rain cloud running around with you. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like that's the constant state of the Sporting Kansas City fan right now.
Yeah.
Which is just that feeling. I do think, anyway, getting back to the positives, I do think that we saw what Radoja could be for this team. I will hold my judgment for a few more games to see that if he can continue that type of performance. But I do think a double pivot pairing with him and Jake can work, and giving Manu that free role. I think it's time to dispense with the Eric Tommy experiment. Unfortunately, and that's not to say that Eric Tommy can't be a useful player on this team. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Manu Garcia can't play 90 every week. He's gonna have to come off the field sometimes. They're gonna have to do some different things.
You say that, but we've seen Johnny Russell get trotted out game after game after game, and 90 after 90 after 90, and get ground into dust. Like, I mean,
he's. Manu's 27, so that's like Johnny Russell 2018, right?
Yeah,
we got 2018 right. Johnny Russell. He was great that year. So we'll worry about that in 5 years, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I think that that we can see a lineup that might be a little bit more functional as far as some of the chance creation. And we'll get to Tactical Corner here in a second, talking about how that can be better. Last thing, how do we think John Pulskamp's doing?
I mean, I think it's still impossible to tell. I mean, he's not he's made some good saves. but he's made some boneheaded plays too. And at this
He
point,
seems to be slow out of his break. Have you noticed that? Just like
he's tentative.
Is it tentative, or is it just he looks awkward trying to come out of his feet to break for something, right? One of the things that, and it's weird saying this about like literally one of the whitest people you could imagine, but Tim Melia was extremely athletic, right? Like that was one of his like, God traits was his athleticism, right? And he could just spring off his feet in a way that helped him in penalties. It helped him in a lot of circumstances up until the very last year when we finally started to see Father Time get a hold of him and slow him down a little bit. But that was his capability. Was he was so fast out of his feet that he could read situations, spring to them, react, and make plays. I think Pulskamp has to be a lot more. He has to anticipate a little bit better, and as opposed to and maybe that's a bad thing about him watching Tim Melia play for 5 years, right? Is that he got used to like, oh, I can just react, wait and see and react, and no, Tim Melia can do that,
Right.
Most goalkeepers, especially the best ones, are anticipating play and not snap reacting. Obviously, getting your feet under you and your balance and all that stuff is important. But yeah, he just looks a little awkward, a little just like not. I don't know. It just doesn't look like he's got his. He doesn't have control of his body in the way you'd want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's and I don't know. Like I don't know that he's doing anything that bad. I don't know that he's doing anything that great either.
Yeah, that's kind of where he is now. I mean, I think like to his credit, I think that he is a big part of the reason why the team earns a point, because he made 2 or 3 game-saving saves on Saturday night.
After having some not great plays early in the first half, right? So it's one
but
of those deals where
he's a young player. That's where he is, right? It's just
right,
kind
but that's
of
what I'm
like
saying.
back and
It's
forth.
like it sort of evened out over the game, right? To being a sort of average experience. But yes, he makes some saves. He throwing the one ball away off to the end line was actually really good play. Like, and it's really smart in the moment. Like,
absolutely,
it was kind of in a weird spot, and he just sort of paws it out for a corner. Like, he did some good stuff. The whole situation at the end of the game with him and Kyrie and having no rapport with each other. Neither one of them knew what the hell the other was doing. Like, Kyrie's shielding off Yeboah, and he's like, "Come get the ball," and Pulskamp's like, "Huh? What?"
Yeah.
And it almost became 4-3. But I think the best way of describing it is like, I don't think there's any reason to pull him off the field. Like, he's not been a shocker by any means. Like, Zach Steffen was way fucking worse than this last year. Like, way worse. Right. So, like, I don't think there's any reason to pull him off the field. But I think that it's also, like, it's not like, oh my God, we must have him in goal either, right? Like it's just kind of like, this is fine.
Yep. And honestly, a season of that at his age is probably okay, right?
Sure.
There's
also the whole thing. They put the BTS out today. I did not know he was Muslim.
Neither did I. Yeah, that surprised me. Yeah.
His mom's Palestinian, so like he was like, it was actually pretty cool in the video. Like, they showed him like how he's going through fasting for Ramadan, and
that's all the video was. It was really interesting.
I found it fascinating. Yunus Musa has talked about it before. The U.S. is playing right now. Like, and I guess he also highlighted there that Shapi is also Muslim, so it's good for him to have another teammate that's like going through it with him and can at least relate, as well as just having someone who he can relate to on the religious side of things as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I can't imagine what it's like. I mean, as a goalkeeper, it's probably easier than being a field player, but still, like, that's wild to me. Like, and that was part of the reason that the game didn't start until when it did. They pushed the kickoff back 3 minutes because it would be after sunset, and then those observing Ramadan would be able to break fast and get their sustenance and water Like that's the crazy thing is water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so yeah, I think there's no need to pull Pulskamp off the field. He's fine. I'd like to see him be better, but I mean, we'd like to see a lot of players be better, and some of them are much more problematic than he is.
Amen.
Okay, let's move on to Tactical Corner. So I posted a couple videos in the Discord, in the Tactical Corner category, whatever they call those things on Discord. It's not a server. We are a Discord server. Thread, yeah. Anyway, I posted a couple videos in there from a YouTube channel that I like a lot because not only does the guy talk about tactical trends and like ideas, does a really good job of visualizing them for you on video and like helping you understand what they all mean. The first one sort of talks about positionalism versus relationism, positionism versus relationism, and kind of where coaches kind of reside on the spectrum of those two topics, right? Guardiola obviously being much more of a positional play, positionism, structure kind of guy. And as you get further over to the right, you've got some Brazilian coaches and whatnot that are much more sort of street ballish and just kind of let the guys go. Carlo Ancelotti is obviously well known as being a guy who lets his guys play. Bruce Arena is probably more towards the relationism side of the spectrum than the positionism part of it. But it also did a really good job, and this is my main thing, it does a really good job of explaining positional play and what we mean by these horizontal and vertical channels and spaces and how you arrange players in it. We talk about it a lot. I know I see it in my head when I'm talking about it on the podcast. I know you do as well. Sometimes it's hard to relate that in an audio medium. And so if you're on the Discord and you want to watch the videos, I think that the account is called like Football Meta or something like that.
That's what it's called.
Anyway, the visualization of kind of what positional play looks like and how it arranges players and the triangles it creates and whatnot that we've talked about for years on this podcast is very clearly outlined there. And it also kind of talks through the philosophies of why you do one or the other and why probably going hard one direction is not the greatest idea, right? While positional play became a thing that has been very popular over the last 15 years, popularized by Pep and been very successful up until maybe a couple years ago, the relationism stuff really only works in like the Brazilian league where they can sort of street ball their way around. It's not something you can't go fully over into that side of things where you just have no structure whatsoever and be successful at almost any league, really. I think David Avery was saying in the Discord, it's like he was talking about Matias Almeida. I think that's another that's a good example of like going a little too far with sort of the man marking and just YOLOing around. And because players at least for the most part, players are used to having instruction of where to do things, right? What they're expected to do. And so you need to give some sort of structure there. The second video I posted was a little bit more about how positional play has evolved, and it goes into kind of the conversations we've had about Iraola and Arne Slot and sort of this like structure but conversation, right? Like structure, but you see this, you attack it. You know what I mean? Like having this sort of impetus for or freedom to be a little bit more aggressive than the structure may or may not have prescribed in a certain circumstance, right?
It's and I think what you mean by being aggressive is being able to take advantage of space whenever and wherever it presents itself,
as opposed to using the pattern to create the space. Exactly.
Right.
You see the space and you immediately go after it, as opposed to looking at going through the whole progression mechanism that he talks about De Zerbi in there and how Brighton has these like 5-pass patterns that they know will create eventually a space that they can play into versus, space there, take it. Right. And I think, you that's exactly right. Is like trying to take advantage of opportunities when you see them. So the main reason I brought all this up because there was a question posted in the Discord about like how do we eliminate this umbrella of despair problem? Like what would be the ideas for keeping Sporting from doing this very very predictable progression pattern to the top of the opponent's 18 where it stalls over and over and over again. And it gets just sort of gets passed around and recirculated and nothing ever of significance happens. No through ball, no nothing is played because the spaces aren't available for them to do it. And instead, their mindset is keep recycling until we create space, as opposed to like creating space themselves. And I had a couple ideas in mind and about how positional play systems would typically try to deal with this, right? And I saw some of it against Minnesota. I just never saw the next step of it. So the biggest issue, because I don't think the umbrella of despair actually happened against Minnesota. I don't think they spent a ton of time collapsed on the top of Minnesota's box, just sort of moving around at the top of the 18. Like I didn't see that. I did see them intentionally not get their lines compressed up there, and in fact play a lot deeper with the ball and and then probe, right? And like that is, if you were to watch Guardiola teams 2 years ago, like that is a big thing they would do. They would very rarely allow themselves to get right on top of an opponent. Mm-hmm. They would sit, they'd have their lines, maybe let's say front line to back line's about 25 yards, but the back line's probably still just inside the half line, but they're about 25 yards between their three lines, and they're kind of going in and out of those lines and probing. And so they'd send one up, they'd see the collapse, they'd see the rotation, they'd try to play it wouldn't happen, they'd come back out. And you'd sort of probe over and over again. The problem is, against Minnesota, is they just weren't really playing ball. They just weren't even collapsing. They didn't care. Right? Right. They had no interest in trying to turn over Kansas City until they got really deep with their lines, and then that turnover could create a transition event the other way. The other thing so what's really important in those recycling movements is you have to not just recycle the ball back to the top, you have to pull the opponent out in the process. Mm-hmm. And that was something that Sporting was not effective at doing to Minnesota. They were not pulling them back. And so, ideally what you're trying to do is with that recycled movement, which, everyone hates a back pass, but sometimes you have to do it in order to pull the opponent out of space and then immediately pass behind their movement. When they pull up, you immediately pass behind that movement and try to attack it. And it's just never something we've seen Sporting be that effective at. As much as they are a positional play team, it's just not something they've ever been that good at.
It takes players with intent and skill to pull that off. And if you watch Inter Miami, they make those motions all the time, right? And it's part of the reason why those guys are so good.
Four of the best players on earth.
Right. They are constantly making those sort of unexpected runs from deep, whether it's Alba or Suarez or Messi or one of the younger guys. The ball gets played out, and as the ball is being played towards the midfield, they're already in a position where they can take advantage, and they're making the run. And so it's just reliant on whoever's receiving the ball in the midfield to spot them and put the ball in a place where they can make a play on it. And they do that over and over again. And it's one of the most impressive things that they do. And I'm not saying that Sporting Kansas City can do something like that, but Sporting Kansas City, they need to move better off of the ball.
So how do you? Yeah, that was going to be my thing. Is the off-ball movement's obviously the problem. They don't have people making runs into spaces. Well, I mean, other than this sort of coordinated thing they were trying to do on the left side that Ndenbe wouldn't pass into with Tommy. What? How do you coach a player into running into that space?
I don't know. You tell them to do that. I don't think that they're really coached to do that. Other than maybe the wide players. You don't. very rarely do you see center forwards in Sporting Kansas City's system making those kinds of runs, and I think that they should make those runs. And almost never do you see midfielders making runs into the box, and I think that that's to maintain sort of defensive solidity. But in the interest of being a dynamic and unpredictable attacking team, I think you have to have look at the way Columbus plays. You have to have players being able to rotate in and make a run into the box from anywhere, right? Because the goal.
But that's the whole point of a positional play system, is that it doesn't matter who's in the position as long as they're there.
Right. But we don't see.
Sporting doesn't rotate like that.
They don't. No, they don't. And I think partly because they don't have the personnel to do that, but also I just don't. Like, they never have done that.
But Nazi doesn't care. He did it with Montreal.
Yeah.
And their roster was doo-doo and took them to like second in the Eastern Conference running this. So it's like I believe you that Vermes probably pigeonholes people into places and doesn't want them moving out of their position too much. But I think that is short-sighted. If you're going to try to take advantage of a positional arrangement like this and create this structure, you have to go all in. You can't just half into it, right? Or you need to do like Arteta is doing now, which is, yes, the positional arrangement is there, but we can attack with 5 on one side if we feel like it, right?
Sure.
Like if we see the opportunity to do that, we're going to do that. And that is where I will say that I do see Vermes' stuff subtly changing a little bit, in that they're doing a lot more heavy wide overloads than they've done in the past. Like the whole thing that Joe Lowry highlighted is antithetical to positional play, but it is also how you create a 1v1 on the opposite side.
Yep.
And it is a clear component of how Arsenal gets Saka and Martinelli isolated 1v1, which is a good opportunity for them, right? Like, they want those situations. And you see that Sporting is sort of looking to do that kind of thing. So there is some evolution, I think, happening here, but I think that maybe Vermes doesn't trust the players that he has to accomplish it. I think he trusts some of them. I don't think he trusts all of them, right? You see what Manu Garcia is given the reign to do because of his quality. I'm hopeful that when Jake Davis gets into the midfield, there will be a little bit more active movement in those places, because I don't necessarily think that the positional play thing is the problem. I think it's the way it's being used. It's being used as sort of this very defined structure that guys are afraid to step out of.
Yeah. I agree with you. I just think that
Hansi Flick is doing a version of it in Barcelona and is being very successful. There are positional arrangement is not going away.
No, it's not.
Even Iraola's system has got a very clear positional arrangement to it, even if even if the shackles are a lot more off as far as how they attack when they see space. There's still a clear structure involved. So that's not going anywhere. But what I'm saying is there's an opportunity for you to have a structure, but not be so not have everybody by the throat into every position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, and that's the way it should go. And I think that if you loosen up the reins on that a little bit, you start to see. I did the same thing that you did. We're watching the game, and Panama
we just saw Panama score in
both...
stoppage time. So you'll all have known what has happened to the game by the time you watch this, but we're both rolling our eyes, and we got it in the background. Good times. Yay. Okay, anyway.
So, yeah, I think that freeing yourself from like the shackles of that is how you end up with your center forward not on an island, right? Because you have players who are in proximity with him, who are willing to work with him and interplay with him, and freeing yourself from that is how you overload the box, and how you have 5, 6, 7 runners in the box to score goals. You have to be able to at least in certain situations be able to sort of break free from that structure and do what you need to do to score and win the game.
I agree. I'm like in this weird place because I think we had a little bit of this discussion on the Discord today. We don't know what the instructions are inside the room, right?
No,
Like,
but we
don't
we
know.
but we know that the same coach has been giving the instructions for the last 10 years. And so we have a pretty good idea, if you look from year to year, what the expectations are.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm also seeing with some of the newer players a difference in like their freedom to do things. And
True, that is always the case. Like new players come in, they look great, and they look like they're these creative, dribblers and attackers.
always the
and
case
then,
is a bit of a
you're,
hyperbolic
you're right,
phrase.
You're right. But we've seen it on multiple occasions where players look great their first couple games, and then they get like the creativity beat out of them and the shackles put on them, and then they're just another spine in the umbrella.
What player has had the creativity beat out of them? I don't even know if I can think of an example of that. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna push back on you about this because I'm like even thinking about it. It's like I can't think of a player that's had the creativity beat out of them. I've seen mid-level players not work out because of having personality conflicts with Vermes, for sure. That has 100% happened. Johan Croise being a prime example of that. But I don't think that the Jose Maury being another one. But I don't think that the success or failure of this team over the last 8 years was tied to those guys getting along in the system. I think it was tied to, did Felipe Gutierrez get along in the system? And he did. Did Gadi Kinda get along in the system? When he was healthy, he 100% did. Did Gadi Kinda have the creativity beat out of him? No. He's actually much fucking worse off where he is now than when he was in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I don't think Alan Polito was ever that creative to begin with. He's a goal scorer. It was all he was good at.
Yeah.
And it was only sometimes. So, like, I hear what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. I don't 100% agree that the coaching has taken creativity out of players. I don't believe that. Benny Feilhaber is one of my favorite players this team has ever had. He never lost his creativity, ever.
That's true.
In fact, Raj got more creative the longer he played here.
He did.
So, like, I for players of consequence, I don't think it's been an issue. I think there have been players on the margins that have come in and out, and that's just natural in any team. And I think Johnny Russell was so great when he got here because he was 27 and could run at defenders hard and do the shit Shoppy's doing right now. But by the time he got to last year, after his 4th hamstring injury, he just couldn't do that shit anymore, right? But I don't think it was a creativity problem. And so, like, I do think within the context of the roster, we have to be realistic about how, like, Peter Vermes can't create creativity either. And I do think, if I'm being fair, that if Wilfred Nancy was coaching this team, he'd just give him the keys and tell him to do it, right? There would be no shackles. There would be no conservatism. There would be no, like, hey, I'm not sure if this guy can hack it. He'd just be like, no, we're going to learn how to hack it, right? And this is what you're going to do. And so I do think that there is a difference in perspective and how they go about doing those things. And reasonable people can disagree about which way is better. I don't think it's a wild thing to say that Nancy is probably the best coach in this league right now. But I don't think Vermes is a bad coach. Whether his time has run out here is a separate conversation entirely. And whether this team needs a fresh look, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, it could be that is possible. But I think that I think that they're going to struggle to find someone better than him that will coach this team.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
I don't think Jim Curtin's coming to Kansas City this summer. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
right.
And there's an argument to be had as to whether or not Jim Curtin's actually a better coach than Peter Vermes.
Right, but I think maybe that's the point, right? A better coach, you might find a coach who's better suited to play with the talent available to Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah, I think that there's a reasonable conversation to be had about how Vermes goes about player evaluation and the roles that he gives, and being more open-minded to giving those players freedom to do things within the game model, right? I would agree with any of those assertions. I don't know that I don't think he's past it by any means. I do think he has strong points of view, and I don't always agree with them. But I don't know that necessarily means they're wrong. It just means they're different. But at a certain point, if the team's not doing well enough, then a change has to be made, and that's just kind of how it goes. And it goes back to a conversation we had a couple weeks ago, which is, if you're in the ownership group, you can't wait until 10 games goes by with no substantive progress to decide to evaluate. You have to be evaluating now. You have to have an idea in mind of, like, when we get to 10 games in and I'm still not seeing it, that we've got to move on with a different plan. Like that's kind of how you have to manage this. If this was any other business, that's how you'd be looking at it. You can't just keep having poor business results year on year on year and just keep sticking with the same leadership. That's not how that shit works. So I think from that perspective, eyes need to be wide open.
Yeah. Do you think the team would be better with, say, Jim Curtin as the coach?
In the short term, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's such a. I don't think Jim Curtin's all of a sudden going to make this team defend better.
Right. What about Gio Savarese?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but it would look like Oscar Pareja being here. It would be the dullest, boringest ass shit of all time. I don't know which one is better, right? Like, you're talking to a guy who suffered through Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte at Tottenham. And now it looks like Ange time may be over based on how things are going. And I don't know. All of them were bad, right? Like, all of them. I've enjoyed the soccer 100 times more with Ange there, but they've got the worst standing they've had and the most losses they've had in a Premier League season in like almost 100 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, was that good or not? So there's like the fan part of it and like me watching the game part of it, and then there's the results.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know that I have a good read on any of it or have a really good feeling in any way about it. I feel fairly confident that this team is not going to be good at any point this year.
So one of the things that kind of bugs me is that when you look at how sort of structured and positional reliant the team is in possession and even moving into the final third, they are not very organized at all in their own defensive third. Like they are constantly just out of position and gappy, and this is not like this season. This is going back. It's just kind of a hallmark to me of the Peter Vermes teams. And if you have high individual quality and defensive talent, you can maybe compensate for that. But I don't like when the team drops into their 4-4-2 block or even 4-5-1. Like I never get the sense that they're shutting the door. You know what I'm saying? And
see, actually, when they get into their block shape, I'm not that concerned about them.
You're not?
No. I mean, if they get into it, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, I want to see those lines and their spacing sort of set. When I see their lines and spacing set, I'm not really that concerned about them. But we're talking about a fine margin of when they get to that place or not. If they are retreating in any way to that position, they're still under threat, for sure. Once they get squared up and they're looking at the ball, I'm not really concerned about them. I think that for the most part, we've seen them. I mean, we watched them play Miami for that game in Kansas City. They were in that block, and outside of a messy golazo, Miami didn't do shit in that game.
Yeah, thanks to Jacob Bartlett.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Robbie Ballard got a nice cruncher in there too, but they're. So I know they can defend in an organized block. I think it's wild to say this because Vermes, we think of him as a coach that really preaches defense and risk aversion. He does not want to play soccer that way. He doesn't.
Right.
He wants to possess the ball in the opponent's end. He wants to run patterns. They just don't. I really think. You want to ask my honest opinion? I don't think they have the talent to pull off the fucking system he's trying to play. Yeah. I just don't think they have it. Mm-hmm. And so he's trying to somehow like sort of force feed a thing that is his sort of platonic ideal of football into this roster and into a roster for several years that just has not been up to the capability of doing it. And I'm not sure how many MLS teams in general are capable of it. Like you talked about Miami being able to pull off all of these sort of, off-ball runs and whatnot. It's because they have four players who've played at the highest levels of the game for a decade and a half. Their football minds are at a level that are just beyond anyone else in this league. And so they understand how to read those spaces and they understand how to take advantage of them. I don't know that Sporting is ever going to have the personnel to pull this off regularly.
Yeah.
And so if you're asking like my honest opinion of like what I think the problem is, it needs to be simplified.
So I don't disagree with you, but I mean, I think that if what you say is true and they're never going to have the talent to pull it off regularly, then they need a different coach. I mean, I think that's just where I fall on it because
or the coach has to figure out how to adjust or accept reality, and he did accept reality last year in some of the changes that he made and got the team at least better at the end of the season. I think he's still a little idealistic.
They lost like 5 straight games at the end of the season. They weren't better.
It was after they got knocked out. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that it's hard to have confidence. When you literally have nothing to play for. Anyway, I promise I'm not camping for the guy. I don't think he's dumb. I don't think he doesn't. I don't think that he is incapable of adjusting to what the team needs. And I actually seriously, part of this Tactical Corner segment and the last 2 podcasts has been me talking about him making significant adjustments to try to enable other players to be better. Like he's trying shit. It's not like a, hey, we're just going to keep rolling the same fucking thing out there over and over again and see what works. He rolled into a double pivot. He moved Tommy into the half space, and it looked sort of okay against DC. It looked like trash against Minnesota. He sees it, brings on Salloi, and they start looking better, right? Like, my biggest issue with him in the past was an inability to accept problems and adjust. And I don't believe I'm seeing that right now. So maybe that's why I'm pushing back so hard about it. Maybe I'm coping. There's a bunch of copium and me just like sort of hoping that things are getting better. But with my eyes, I see improvement at a whole. Like when I rewatched the game against Minnesota, it did not look near as bad in the first half as the stats showed. Yes, they did not create. Look, the goal of the game is to put the ball in the net and keep the opponent from putting the ball in the net. And they were not good at either of those things. So wholeheartedly, it was bad. But the structures and the ways and the problems that we had seen were improved. And we started at the beginning of this season saying, we don't expect this team to be very good. What we're looking for is progress. And that was what I saw. And isn't that the coach's job?
Yeah.
I mean, I really do think in the moment, watching games as a fan is like the absolute worst time to evaluate this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it is the absolute worst. Because you're so invested in just wanting to see the team win and not be bad that when they are bad and bad things happen, it's easy to just sort of downward spiral into this negative place. And I was there on Saturday. And when I watched the game on Monday, I didn't feel that way about it. Now, part of it is I knew they came back and tied the game. But also, like, when I watched the first half, there was some stuff I was mad about, for sure. But those weren't structural. They were, like, mistakes. They were individual mistakes. The structural issue I had was not either the players or the coach not saying, hey, look, this team's going to try to kill us on their counterattack, so once the ball gets to a certain point, just retreat. Like, that seems like basic kind of shit against a team like that.
Did you see the team attempting to play a more direct style of football in the first half?
I saw the runs. I didn't see the passes. So I mean, I don't know what's causing players not to pass the ball. Maybe you may be right. Maybe Vermes is telling them, don't ever turn it over. If you don't see a perfect pass, don't hit it. Maybe that's what he's telling him. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. But I saw runs not turn into anything.
Yeah. And
so, do they need players who are more willing to hit the pass? Do they need more clear instruction that it's okay to hit that pass? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I saw movement that did not turn into passes to the movement. And I mean, in fairness, that happens. All kinds of teams have that.
Sure.
You see fucking runs all the time that don't turn into anything.
Yep.
So I don't know that I don't know that's a novel problem that Sporting has.
No, it's not.
Okay. Anyway, done being a shill for Peter Vermes. So
to be continued. We will discuss it more, guaranteed.
Yeah, we will definitely discuss it more. All right, let's move on to potpourri. Just like your favorite Jeopardy category, we got a couple topics in and around the Sporting Kansas City MLS soccer sphere. I really don't want to talk about the second one. The Kansas City Current. Kansas City Current were fun. They were a fun soccer team to watch on Saturday morning, like 11:30, I guess. Still no Bia, so Vlaco rolls out what looked like a formation very similar to what they played at the end of last year, but actually ended up in practice to be quite a bit different from what they did last year. We talked about positional play dynamics and like different teams doing different stuff. Something you're very familiar with, Arne Slot at Liverpool has been sort of playing a no striker formation for a while. where, yes, someone is listed as the striker, but there's really not anyone like pinning center backs back, so to speak. There's a lot of sort of fluid movement in a line of four attacking the goal. And that's what we saw the Current doing, mainly with Vanessa Di Bernardo sort of coming out of midfield and playing sort of high and right a lot in this. And then Michelle Cooper, who was a striker in college, but sort of been converted to a winger since then, playing a lot more narrowly and sort of functioning as a striker, but also just moving a lot more freely. And it was fun. It was interesting. It was different. I sort of highlighted it as like, is this sort of a little Liverpoolish 4-2-4 that we're seeing here? And you're like, yeah, which works when you have those two midfielders. And I agree. You've got Lola Bonta and Claire Hutton holding down the center of midfield. You can get away with doing stuff like this, but also, you have players in Cooper and Chawinga who can recover and defend as well. And Cooper was an animal with her counter press in this game.
She was
too.
Great. Yeah.
She was absolutely crushing it. Not just the goal, which was insane.
Yeah.
The goal she scored was nuts, but her counter pressure was really, really good. And you get to see how that can work when you get meaningful possession against the opponent in their defensive third, and then try stuff and the ball turns over, and then you go back and turn them back over and create problems for them. So it was good. It was fun. And then the last thing I will say, and I'll let you go, Dabinia was cooking.
Yeah, she was.
We never really got to see Dabinia play like this last year. She was sort of in and out of the lineup, and when she came in, she was injured, or she was coming off injury, and I don't know if any of that had an impact last year, but this was peak Dabinia, like, on display in this one. And really, like, if she's going to play like that, sky's the limit, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I like about watching them is the system seems set up to get the most out of each one of those players, right? Maybe not Di Bernardo so much. She kind of was, I don't know, maybe almost kind of like a decoy in some respects, but I mean, she's a good attacking player, and she has the flexibility to play anywhere along the attacking line. And so but the nice thing is that it gets Dabinia into space, it gets Chawinga into space, and those are things like that's your job as the coach, right? Is to get your players in the position where they can really excel, and I think that's what's happening right now. And I mean, they're just fun to watch, I mean, that's that's the thing. They're just fun to watch, and I think that like, so much for me just comes down to those two midfielders, because those two women can really just lock it down, and they're both like complete midfielders. They can pass, they can tackle, and so it makes everybody else's job easier when you have players like that.
Totally agree. And Vlatko was I feel like the team's a little bit deeper now too. While I say that while in the same breath saying that I don't understand why he was being so cute with how he set up the fullbacks. Although with the setup that they had, I sort of understand why you would want a more defensive fullback out there to kind of provide cover for the midfielders. So Elizabeth Ball playing right back in this game is what I'm referring to, moving Ellie Wheeler to left back because Haley Mace was unavailable. I was just sort of love of the mindset. It's like, I think Izzy Rodriguez is a perfectly functional backup left back, and I don't know why we're being so cute with this. It worked, it was fine, but also when Izzy Rodriguez came on, you saw a lot more functional play out of that position, and yeah. I think sometimes, I mean, look, they won the game, it was fine. There was some talk about them falling off in the second half, and they actually had more shots and more XG, I think, in the second half than they did in the first. It was just it was more ball didn't go in in the second half than anything else.
Yeah, they were still dominant.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Portland scores and then gets the penalty, which was kind of a janky situation as well. But
Yeah, it was.
the,
It's weird. It's weird. Football is such a weird game. You can be completely dominant and not score. You can be dominated and score 3 goals and a half. You know what I'm saying? It's just weird.
You're so fucking grumpy right now, dude. Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway, it was.
I don't want to be. I just want to make that clear. I do not want to be grumpy. I want to enjoy watching Sporting Kansas City play.
Did you not enjoy them scoring 3 goals in 12 minutes and coming back in that game?
Sure. Yeah.
You didn't.
It's
You
a
did
point.
not.
It's a point at home. I mean, you know.
I mean, the result is. I've said this over and over again. The results are irrelevant at this point. I'm looking for progress, and I saw progress. I saw the coach make changes. I saw the team play better. That's all I really fucking care about,
All right.
honestly. I mean,
I'm sorry.
like,
I'll stop being grouchy then.
well, I understand where you're at, but I'm also like, I'm desperately trying to get some enjoyment out of this team too. And while I understand that, yes, they only had half an XG or whatever it was in this game, and it was a positive goal scoring variance game and all the other shit, they came back and got a draw.
Yeah.
There was a result. It's the first fucking time since September they've gotten a result of any kind. So yeah, I'm trying to enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
I mean, I get it. Like, I get where that mindset comes from, but I'm also like not trying to be mad at them all the time either.
Yeah.
Okay. So the current, they were fun. They were interesting and fun.
They're going
US
to
men's
be
national, U.S. men's national team, not fun.
Not fun.
Not fun. I don't even want to talk about it, honestly.
Nope.
Like we were gonna discuss this game. We both had it on in the background while we were recording, and both of us watched Panama score in stoppage time. And yeah, not great. I mean, that's really all I have to say. I'm not even going to go into it any further. Let's do one thing to look for. LAFC comes to town this weekend, so things are going to get much better, right? LAFC's not playing that great right now, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
They're struggling with Champions Cup as well. The rotations necessary for that. They've kind of played this sort of 3-4-3 thing in a couple games when they've had to rotate players for midweek games. Olivier Giroud, I mean, like, it could be Olivier Giroud might be worse than Alan Polito right now. Like, really. Or at least he's worse. He's a poor fit for this team. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he would have been great in the Alan Polito role.
Do you think so? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe so. Maybe so. But the problem is Sporting doesn't cross the ball.
No,
So-
so you're right. That is a problem. That has always been a problem.
They don't cross the
Why
ball.
don't say things to get me going, Drew?
One of the cool things about that, by the way, about those videos I posted up, the second one talks a whole lot about how early crosses are a thing and like getting early service.
Man, I love early crosses so much.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. Liverpool does a lot of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cross coming from much higher up the field and not playing so much for the cutback and more trying to like serve the ball in on a curve. I don't see Sporting doing that. I mean, Leibold is probably the only guy on the field that can do that with any regularity. So I don't see that happening a lot, but for Sporting, but it was interesting stuff. The LAFC, I don't know. Bouanga's not going to be in, but I mean, Kenji there was got his first start last week and 100% looked the part. It's the first time I've ever actually seen that guy play in person. I've signed him on Football Manager about 4 times, but I've never actually seen him play. In earlier versions of Football Manager, that guy was like a wunderkid. He was like one of the ones that you were trying to sign all the time. But he's on loan at LAFC now, and I think they'll be fine with him and David Martinez playing on the wings. They still, I guess it's a Bobasi or
Yeah, it'll be a Bobas.
Ordaz, I guess, playing the center forward because Giroud can't even get off the bench for this team now, which is an interesting problem to have. But they're probably going to play in a 4-3-3. They're gonna. So what's interesting is that they don't necessarily want the ball that much either, but they're gonna transition totally differently than Minnesota does. They're gonna be much more active in their midfield. So it is a completely different problem, even though it is a not completely dissimilar idea about how you want to score goals. So
this is one of those games that would be really nice to have Jake Davis in the midfield, like
100%.
Really, because
I
their midfield is formidable.
It is. I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with Igor Jesus, their new six.
I like him.
He's very young, but he seems to be the part for sure.
Yep.
Timmy Tillman, and then
Delgado.
Mark Delgado. So yeah, they've got a pretty good. But the thing is if Sporting does run this double pivot, they kind of get a natural man marking setup with the inverted triangle. So that, I guess, that could work in their advantage as far as being able to sort of snuff out what LAFC is trying to do with their midfield. So we'll have to see. It's really gonna. I have concerns about Radia's mobility against their midfield. Like, that is a problem.
Yep, me too.
So we're going to have to see how much that works. Austin beat them in LA, basically sitting in a low block for the whole game. Just sort of did what Minnesota did to Sporting Kansas City. Just sat in a block, didn't let them do shit, and just got a goal and went home.
Yep.
But Sporting's not going to do that. We know they're not going to do that. They're not going to sit in a low block in their home park against LAFC. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I guess we're just going to have to see how those ball progression philosophies continue to evolve and continue to progress. And what do you think? You think Tommy will start on the bench?
I can't imagine that.
I can't see a world in which that happens. I don't think.
I wouldn't.
I don't think one Daniel Salloi good sub appearance for half an hour is going to get him into the starting lineup. I just don't see Vermes acting in that way. That just doesn't seem.
I mean,
like
at this point, I wouldn't be averse to just try and Tommy at the right side at 8 just to see what gives. I mean, he'll be active. He's not really, defensively adept enough to really fill in that position, but he'll at least be active and he'll at least present
if
problems. If they're
playing in a 4-3-3, I could sort of understand that. He should not be a double pivot midfielder.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
and if for two reasons, right? One, he's just I don't think he's good enough defensively, and I don't think he covers enough space to be that type of player. I think. Well, let me put it this way: I think he gets caught up field too much for him to be a responsible
100%.
Defensive midfielder.
100%.
The other problem you have with him playing in a double pivot, if Manu is rotating right to left, he's going to get in Manu's space all the time. Like, the only way that works is if they're playing in a 4-3-3 and those guys are separated a little bit.
Yep.
And I do think that takes a little bit out of Manu's effectiveness if he's not able to roam.
I agree.
So
and against this team, I don't think that you want to roll with like Radia in a single pivot. I think that would be a disaster. So
I do too, and I also think that Manu could abuse Jesus. He's a younger player that I think is going to try to get into tackles, and I think that Manu will read those and spin out of them. He's really good at receiving and turning out of tackle attempts, and I think that there's going to be opportunities for him to do that, and I think that could create leverage situations. And so I kind of want Manu to be a little bit freer and more central.
Totally
in
agree.
order to pull that off.
Totally agree.
All right. We shall see what happens. The weather is I looked at it. I thought the weather was going to be nicer. And now it's like, might rain. Might be a thunderstorm. We might be stuck there till 1 a.m. Good times. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yes.
And on that note, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
We go Sporting.